Misconceptions are inaccurate views based on faulty thinking or understanding. This has become more common in the digital age as misconception can spread exponentially faster than ever before, with potential millions of viewers and the ability to share across multiple platforms. Critical thinking is important when new information is presented to get accurate information and avoid misconceptions. This can be done by employing online skepticism, fact checking information resources, determining if the content has been pulled out of context, and being especially conscious of your reasons and potential harms before sharing information. This is especially important in healthcare, with the most recent example being the misconception surrounding COVID-19 and its vaccine being a government chip, resulting in anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. New Age technology allowed these misconceptions to be spread worldwide, regardless of real-world disruptions like lockdowns, with the World Health Organization even coining it an infodemic, which is a pandemic of information disorders. Consequences of this caused distrust in doctors and research professionals, leading to the widespread of contagion and unvaccination, as well as fear-mongering, increasing anxiety and anger, leading to reduced physical, psychological, and emotional well-being. Subtypes of misconception include misinformation, which is information that is fake or misleading but spread unintentionally. This includes inaccurate connections or misleading content, such as posting content you believe to be true but isn't, commonly caused by error, cognitive bias, or not fact-checking information. The next is disinformation, which is fake or misleading information that is spread intentionally to deceive the readers into aligning with the creator's ideals. It can include genuine content in inaccurate contexts, as well as such as imposter sites or completely fabricated or manipulated content. This includes fake news, deep fakes, and propaganda. Malinformation is true and accurate information but manipulated in different contexts for malicious intent, sometimes to spread hate towards a person or group. This includes harassment or hate speech and leaked content. Examples are revenge porn, or doxing, which is hacking or the fraud of personal information. The Guardian news article by Melissa Davey in 2023 makes a statement about the urgent need to understand the link between teenagers self-diagnosing and social media use, particularly in platforms like TikTok. They go on to state self-diagnosis, predominantly Tourette's, is being driven by social media and difficulty accessing healthcare, using expert opinions and articles to support their statements. The Guardian article itself is not highly valid as it states they have expert opinions, but its only supporting evidence is one professional paper that didn't entirely support their claims, one psychiatrist whose quotes weren't referenced and I couldn't find the interview online, so it could be fabricated, one pediatrician that supported their claims and used self-diagnosis, but they weren't named or referenced. This limited sampling can't generalize their claim of social media influencing self-diagnoses, or generalize the whole population of teenagers, expressing poor external validity and reliability. Some hyperlinks also took you back to their main Guardian homepage with nothing supporting their claims, just to increase their views for revenue. The next one is urgent need into the concerning phenomenon of differing tics, as only 15% of people with Tourette's have vocal tics. I looked into the hyperlink of Muir-Val Journal article 2021, and I have a couple points. Firstly, there was no evidence supporting the 15% statistic, which is easily debunked by approximately 60% of people with Tourette's presenting vocal tics. Primarily, this referenced article focuses on differing tics and provides no relevance to teen self-diagnosis through social media, so parts have been taken completely out of context. Furthermore, the news site implies healthy or non-Tourette's teenagers are spontaneously getting tics from social media and uses this article to support that agenda. But the experts even state no social media-induced tics have been occurred in healthy participants, and worsening of Tourette's syndrome can be easily ruled out in the article they referenced. The study participants were also already diagnosed with Tourette's, so trying to link to self-diagnosis in healthy people is completely redundant. It was based off these participants following a famous Tourette's influencer, Jan Zimmerman, who had unusual tics which were presented in the participants. The study itself was not valid for external generalization to all social media users, as it was based off one man's influence in Germany. It also doesn't support the news site's stated urgency, as echophrexia and echolalia, the imitation of others' movements and vocals, is a common symptom of Tourette's. Seen in the study by Ganos et al. 2012, these symptoms were intensified when people with Tourette's were viewing other people's tics. There was the Tourette's group and the healthy group were both shown videos of other patients' tics and spontaneous movements by other healthy participants. The healthy group didn't imitate either, debunking the news site's idea that social media is causing these tics. The Tourette's group imitated 81% of all movements, significantly more when they were watching tics. This gives an alternate explanation for why people were presenting with similar unusual tics as Jan Zimmerman, the German influencer. This further debunks the news site's argument of self-diagnoses, as it only occurred in people already diagnosed with Tourette's. The third evidence states an increase in tick like behavior before and during COVID, coinciding with an increase in social media content related to Tourette's. These two separate articles supporting their individual claims, but there's no supporting evidence of their correlation or causation in connection to self diagnosis. A certified thesis by Camille Omega in 2023 shows there's no significant differences between before and after social media use on self diagnosis. The link between these two could be explained by alternate reasons other than what the news site is pushing, such as people with Tourette's getting a diagnosis due to increased awareness and or reduced stigma by normalizing it. Furthermore, the study was based before and during COVID, and as the site was posted post-COVID in 2023, they're using irrelevant and outdated sources. The second is self-diagnosis trend being driven by social media. The hyperlink took me to a Guardian article about why young women are developing Tourette's. The fact it linked me back to its own website reduces validity as they're not sourcing outside information and just increasing bias and financial gain. Furthermore, the article is about 3 women's stories with diseases that aren't even Tourette's but diagnosed by a neurologist with an unknown neurological seizure condition, so it's irrelevant and nothing to do with self-diagnosis. The article even states opposing views that TikTok is not giving people Tourette's, and there is a rise in unexplained tics, but some are social media users and some are not. So this article supports no correlation or link between media and self-diagnosis of disorders. This reduces the main site's internal and external validity for their claim, as well as the small sample size reducing reliability even if it had supporting content. The last one is mental health sufferers may be driven online because of the difficulty in accessing GP appointments. This has no supporting evidence and is completely incorrect, especially within Australia. It infers that it's worsened since the pandemic, but since then the availability of bulk billing GP appointments has increased and accessibility has been improved with telehealth, an alternate online or phone GP appointment. Mental health cares were also introduced in 2014, allowing 10 free sessions with a psychologist every year, debunking the claim that it's difficult to get accessible and affordable appointments. This has a large potential audience due to its online availability, sharing options increasing its reach, and many clickbait words that come up when Google searching. Due to the attention grabbing words, professional layout, symbolism of guardian agency as if they're watching out for you, and mentioning experts in the title, it's unlikely the audience will recognize misleading information and trust the site. Especially people who are loyal to the Guardian News, as it's been running since 1872 with the slogan of Decade Making a Difference, increasing their trustworthy appearance. Represented in a reliability test for the site showing high reader bias but average reliability, representing the reliability results were influenced by the subjectivity shown in the high bias, and there was no real measures of validity. The platform is also independently funded and not peer-reviewed, further reducing its reliability. The target audience is parents of teenagers, as it's not a typical site that teens would read unless it's shared to a social media platform. The aim is to prey on their parental concerns with a clickbait title including urgent situation and expert perspectives while implying the harm that their teenagers could be doing by self-diagnosing disorders. This increases their readers and revenue. It has a more targeted audience as it increases the likelihood parents will share the article with other concerned parents, further increasing their reach. The site is centered around teenagers who use social media, potentially self-diagnosing. The site normalizes self-diagnosis and exaggerates its prominence, potentially causing teenagers to think it's an acceptable form of diagnosis. It further doesn't follow ethical guidelines of including warnings about the potential harms of self-diagnosis and providing mental health resources when targeting vulnerable populations or discussing sensitive topics, such as teenagers and mental health. This can cause harm as they might self-diagnose and not seek professional help when needed, potentially decreasing their well-being. All sources and expert quotes are either not referenced, so they could be fabricated, or they're not associating self-diagnosis directly with social media and simply taken out of context from their respected articles or quotes. This rules out malinformation as the way the content was manipulated and inappropriately interpreted makes it inaccurate. I believe the misleading information was spread intentionally with clickbait titles and unreferenced experts and evidence to appear trustworthy, so that rules out misinformation. This was done to increase readers and fear-mongering in parents of teenagers, resulting in increased reach, revenue, and shares. Ultimately, I believe this article represents the misconception of disinformation as the content was inappropriately misinterpreted and contextualized intentionally to deceive the reader into an emotional response or aligning with the writer's ideals. In conclusion, accurately and ethically sharing information is imperative to stop the spread of misconception. This is demonstrated in the news site predominantly using disinformation by inappropriately contextualizing content for their own agenda to increase views and fear-mongering in parents of teenagers. Critical thinking can be employed by readers through fact checking information sources, employing online skepticism, and considering the harms and reasons of sharing before doing so. This is especially important for reducing healthcare misconceptions, as to ensure accurate health information is circulating and having trust in professionals to increase population health and quality of life.